Christ is risen.
Indeed he is risen.
Христос воскрес.
Воистину воскрес.
This is considered the third Sunday of Pascha. Just like in Lent, every Sunday following Pascha has a different theme to it based on the gospel readings that we read. And last week it was Thomas, the doubting of Thomas, and this week it's the story of the myrrh-bearing women. What's fascinating about the gospel readings is that, and throughout the entire gospel, is the place that women have in the gospel. It's women that first encounter Christ, that first see him risen from the dead. Right? We have this story in Mark about the myrrh-bearing women coming to the tomb to anoint him with spices, as was the custom. It's a funny story because you think to yourself, they have all these spices, they know that the stone is there, and it's like they're on their way and they're almost at the tomb, and they think to themselves, oh wait, how are we going to get the stone rolled away? You know, it's kind of a funny story. Like, they sort of like, in their grief and in their haste, they don't think their plan through, you know, because, I mean, if he hadn't risen from the dead, they would just be stuck there with no way to open the tomb. It's kind of a funny story in that sense, right? But they get there and they find neither the guards nor the stone in its place, but it all rolled away, and they see an angel sitting inside the tomb there. So they see the angel there, and they're the first ones to see Christ. In the Gospel of John, we have Mary Magdalene, who comes and thinks that Jesus is a gardener, right? And she's the first one to see him as well. And so we have this special place that women have in the gospel. And I think what's significant about this is a theme throughout the entire gospel, and that is the place of people who are weak and kind of disregarded by society. The place that they have in the gospel. And this is what I mean, is that you have, whether it's children, right? We have the idea of children coming, right? What happens when the children come into Jesus, the disciples try to do what? They try to get all these children away, right? When it's a foreigner, right, or a stranger, like the Phoenician woman who's not Jewish, right? What happens? The disciples try to push this woman and this foreigner away, and what does Jesus do? Right? He tells her to come forward. He heals her daughter. Who is the person who has the greatest faith in all of Israel in the Gospels? The centurion, right? Who's not Jewish. Okay? So again and again in the Gospels, we have an upsetting of people's expectations. And in fact, what you really have is you have Jesus taking all the ways in which the world thinks about power and control. All the people who are powerful, right? He defies them, right? And all the people who are weak and powerless, he raises up in some way. Right? I mean, look, well, what does he do? I mean, in the end, he's killed by the Jewish authorities and the Roman authorities because he's a threat, right, to their power and control. And because he doesn't buy in to this narrative, right, that of success. And this is what I want to talk about today. Is what we have in Jesus Christ is a redefining of what success is, right? And who you should trust and listen to. Right? You shouldn't, in the Gospels, trust or listen to what? The Jewish or the religious leaders, right? Or the people in power. Who is it that you should listen to? Right? These silly women coming back and telling you a story about someone risen from the dead, right? What do the apostles do when they hear this story? We didn't read about it. It's in the very next section after this. It's not read today. They don't listen to them. They think they're silly, right? Old wives' tales. Okay? They don't listen to them. And this is an important theme of who it is that you trust. Okay? In this message, we're called to trust the women, right? We're called to trust and listen to the people that the rest of society and the rest of the world and culture would say that it's not that important to listen to. Because they don't have much to say, because they haven't done anything. And what you see Jesus doing is, see, what we like to do, right? We like to, if someone's successful, right? They're rich, they're powerful, they've done things. We listen to them, right? They write books and we watch TV shows about them and they tell us how they were successful and we buy their stuff so that we can do it too, right? Right? You know, in politics, we like to listen to someone who's rich or someone who's done something, right? You know? And this goes on and on throughout all culture, is that we are addicted to very material and outward signs of success, right? We buy into that whole story, right? That if someone has done enough stuff, right, that they're worth listening to. And in the Gospels, you get the exact opposite message of that. Jesus does not ask you to listen to the rich man, right? The rich man walks away dejected from Christ and doesn't inherit the kingdom he's looking for, right? He calls you to listen and trust the poor, women, foreigners, and the weak, and the sick. I mean, if you think about it, his entire gospel ministry is about upsetting and flipping on you the whole power structure of the way you think the world works or should work, of who you think is successful. He takes that very notion and destroys it. And that's partly why he's killed. Because doing that, a lot of people have a lot to lose if he changes the way people think. Right? Because all of a sudden, the people who are, quote, successful, right, and in charge, the masses aren't listening to them anymore. They're not trusting them in the same way anymore. And see, trust is a lot about power. Because when you trust somebody, you are giving over power to them. You are opening up and being vulnerable with them, right? And trusting them in some way. And so the Gospels is very much about this. And today's story about the myrrh-bearing women is about who you're going to trust and listen to. And the message of the Gospel is not the rich, it's not the powerful, it's not the successful. Because success is redefined in Jesus Christ, right? I mean, he's sort of the unsuccessful God, right? Because he comes down, right? And everyone betrays him and abandons him, and then he dies. That does not sound like success to me, does it? That sounds like what? Failure. But what happens, right? What's the great phrase that, like, God takes what? The weak things of the world to shame the powerful. Right? The first shall be what? Last, and the last shall be first, right? The story of Samuel and David. Man looks to the external things of man, but God knows the secrets of his heart. You can go on and on. This is a universal theme in the Scriptures, and especially in the Gospel and in the work of Christ. That he's trying to open our eyes to realize that the way we think, what we think is important, what we think is successful, who we think we should trust and listen to, is not the obvious choice. And so he is taking people who are lowly and weak and vulnerable, and he's lifting them up and giving them a place, giving them something that they can say and do. And part of that is because the things that really matter, okay? Virtue, character, love for your neighbor, being a truly beautiful and deep human being is something that money and success and accomplishments have nothing to say about. And it's something that totally cuts through all classes and categories that we like to put people into and judge people by. And Jesus is coming to us and telling us to disregard all these categories and all these labels and all these classes and all of these ways that we have decided to put people in boxes and prejudge people. And to cast them aside and to maybe listen to the silly women who have something important to say. And so how does this play out in our own lives? You know, we like to write certain people off all the time, right? We're like, that person, he doesn't talk well, or he smells, or he doesn't dress right, or he doesn't have a job, whatever, right? We see things about people, and we immediately write them off and put them into certain boxes and decide whether or not we're going to listen to them, decide whether or not they're worth our time, decide whether or not they have anything to offer us, right? And we especially do this if there's in any way, right, they don't measure up to sort of external signs of success, right? They're fat, they're lazy, they smell, they don't have a job, they're not from the right place, they don't live in the right place, they don't have money, they're not smart, okay, right? Whatever it is, okay? They're a woman, they don't know what they're talking about, women, right? Or whatever, right? We do this with all kinds of categories, and we write the person off as if they have nothing really to offer us. And if they don't have anything to offer us, they're not really what? Worth our time, are they? But how many of us, and we all do this if we're honest, if somebody who has money or success gives us the slightest bit of attention, what do? Right? We bend over backwards for them, right? We change our schedule so that if someone rich or successful wanted to have a lunch meeting with us, right? What would we do? We would move the world so that we could be with that person. And we do this all the time with people, right? We're constantly preferencing, giving preference to the rich, to the powerful, and to the, quote, successful around us all the time, right? Whether it's in what we watch or what we read, or who we listen to, or what we talk about, or what kind of time we give people out of our own lives. And today's gospel message about the myrrh-bearing women is that that is wrong. It's wrong because it's not good for us. It's wrong because it's not true. Because everyone has something significant to offer you. And it's not so much about what that person has to offer. It's about when you open up and you give yourself to somebody else, that's how you receive something, right? That you grow and you receive and you are blessed, right? When you empty yourself out, when you sacrifice yourself like Christ. See, this is the image we have in the crucifixion and in the resurrection, is that when you self-sacrifice, when you give of yourself, that is how you are blessed, right? It's by dying that you have life. It's not by accumulating and hoarding more and more. It's by giving away that you find yourself. And that is the message of the cross. It's like Christ, that if we give everything away, we find that we have life. Lord Jesus Christ.